Again, segment number one, we talk about a quick overview of kind of our picks against the spread. And again, Houston, great job, my friend. I just want to give you some more shout out, give you some props for sure, because you're holding up the team for sure. You have brought it back in to the winning record. You have joined me in your overall record. You're now 57 and 55. Big Al 55 57. So you just swap places there. And then I am 58 and 54. So just one game up on Mr. Houston there. So I'm getting a little bit nervous. And as you'll see probably later on the night, I'm changing up my tactics. Not only is Houston going to go first, but I'm not going to allow him to pick as many games. So I'm going to do everything I can. Just call me Dominion. I'm going to do everything I can to stop Houston from winning this race. So let's talk about some of the games here. We do ACC and we do some top 5 games of the week. ACC, Syracuse at Louisville. Louisville just destroyed Syracuse, but I rewatched the game. Really wasn't that pretty for either. Syracuse is literally the worst team in America, so you really can't even brag about it. Who knows their quarterback? Last name is Morgan. I thought he would do better. He got destroyed. He has no offensive line, and it's just really sad to even watch Syracuse. So, congratulations there, Houston, with a lone wolf picker, because Alan and I thought, there's so many injuries out there. Give me the plus 18. And didn't work out for us. So that was one of the ones that Houston had. I believe he had 3 lone wolf winners of the weekend. So good job there, Houston. Next one was Wake Forest at Duke. That one got canceled. And that one was one we had listed down as fishy. All of us went for Wake Forest, but we'll see if they we'll see. I think I put down canceled, so it doesn't look like they're going to actually redo that game. Virginia Tech at Pittsburgh. This is another one I rewatched as well. What did we say? All 3 of us hammered home on Pittsburgh. And we were correct. It was the home underdog, but Pittsburgh's defensive line stood up that offensive running attack for Virginia Tech. I'll get into that more when we talk about them versus Clemson, because Pittsburgh, get this, against one of the best rushing teams, the best rushing team in the ACC, one of the best rushing teams in the country, they beat them. Where's it at? They only allowed they allowed no rushing touchdowns in that game. So, and A.J. Dillon was the lead rusher, not Khalil Herbert for Virginia Tech. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Pittsburgh also outrushed them, or had a better rusher, and then they both actually had about even. I think it was 156 yards to 152 yards, but no rushing touchdowns for Virginia Tech. The only way they could get it done was passing the ball, and they didn't win the game. The next one up was Virginia, Abilene Christian at Virginia. We didn't pick that one. And then Liberty at North Carolina State. I did not actually watch this game. I tried to get in and listen to the highlights on it, but I didn't get it. I did see some of it. It looks like it was a pretty good back and forth. North Carolina State looked like they did really well running the ball. Obviously, Zonovan Knight, there, doing well. But it came down to a missed field goal. At the end, Liberty had a chance to win the game. That was one that Houston lost. So Houston, Liberty goes down. They're now no longer undefeated. But and you lost the lone wolf pick there. But are you really upset with that? I mean, I felt like, it was a good game overall. And so what were your thoughts with that? That was really your only loss of the weekend.
Well, the team that I picked to win won. I was picking NC State to win. The problem was they did not capitalize. When NC State got the pick at the end, when it was 15-14, I believe they were in Liberty territory. I was like, this is when this happens. I'm going perfect tonight. NC State's going to punch this in and win by 8, and I'm going to go home feeling good. They didn't. Liberty got the ball back, and they were a field goal away from me going, man, Liberty's going to be making some noise and really play. If you play Coastal Carolina and beat them, they might actually have a shot at going to like a New Year's Six bowl or I don't know. I don't know how far they can go with this, but field goal's blocked. Liberty loses. Hugh Freeze will be the next coach at either Tennessee or Auburn.
Not South Carolina. Interesting you didn't say that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, he said that. He said he's at peace at Liberty. I guarantee you that peace might change a little bit if it comes in the form of light orange or blue and orange on the plains. That might change it a little bit. Change his peace a little bit.
You know, the Bible talks about peace that transcends all understanding. I think when you don't become a coach of South Carolina, you get that same kind of feeling. You know, that kind of just deep peace. But next up was Coastal Carolina and App State. Man, let me tell you something. That was a good game to watch. I watched about half of it live, and then I got a bunch of the replays, and I mean, it was really back and forth. App State had the lead for a good amount of the game, to be honest with you. I didn't know if Coastal was going to be able to pull it out, but what happened was it seemed like in the second half, really, App State their quarterback started throwing interceptions, and they really started to hurt them. Not only did they capitalize on them, but man, they did a backdoor cover at the end of the game. And Qualk and Walt and everybody was just jumping up and down on Twitter because of that backdoor cover at the very end with a pick six, no less. So what do you think? I mean, Coastal now continues to stay undefeated. It was a little hard for me to watch. I don't mind the teal field. I just don't like necessarily the brown end zone. I'd rather them have picked like maybe a black or something in the end zone. It just doesn't look right to me. And with that bright sunlight on there, it was a little tough to watch. But I mean, teal's better than some other colors I've seen out there. So, Houston, what's your thought on that one too?
Yeah, Coastal played really well. I was worried about this game going in, picking Coastal. App State is a really good team and it's been there before. I feel like App State's probably going to be the team most likely out of all the Power 5 teams next year to make noise enough to get within the New Year's Six striking distance. But Coastal's a good team. They played really well on defense, made all the necessary adjustments. I will say this, after watching them and catching up with Liberty, I'm swinging more on the Liberty bandwagon when that game gets here at the end of the season. Liberty has played 3 ACC opponents, beaten 2 of them, and almost beat a third. Coastal, very good, great season. They're America's team, but you're struggling with App State. I tend to lean Liberty and Malik Willis on that one coming up in the future.
I mean, Malik Willis looked good for sure. Al, here's one I wanted to ask you about, because we hadn't forgot about you over there. You're about to go get you something to eat for dinner.
I'm bursting over here.
Indiana. Man, Indiana starts out, Ohio State jumps all over them. Justin Fields, here we go again. I'm thinking, great. Not only did Florida State screw Clemson over with not playing, but they also hurt Trevor Lawrence in this whole Heisman Trophy debate, that I'm really get chapped about. But then, after halftime, I mean, Indiana stuck with them. And one of the quotes there, Ty Freifogel scored a touchdown. And the announcer there, I can't remember his name. I should have wrote it down. But he's the one that has the great voice, for the Big Ten there. But him and the other guy from Fox that always do those big games. But he said Freifogel fried him on the touchdown. I thought, yeah, that works great. But Freifogel and Penix Jr. did really good together. They stayed in the game and kept fighting and had a chance twice with 7 points, within 7 points, to try to win the game towards the end. And Justin Fields looked a little off with 3 interceptions, I believe, for that game. Had to lean on Master Teague, which another great name there, Freifogel and Master Teague. But what were your thoughts on that game looking back? I mean, it seems like Ohio State's, we all thought their defense was going to take a little bit of a step back because of all the people they lost to the NFL.
Yeah, I think their defense is actually taking a major step back. I'm not very impressed with their defense at all. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble when they come up against an Alabama or a Clemson potentially in the playoffs. But that was a great game. I think it went 35-7 at one point, and I kind of turned it. I wasn't even looking at it. I was watching the other games that we had picked. Seeing what those would bring, and then all of a sudden I see down at the ticker it says I think it went 48-28 or something, or 42-28. I was like, wow, they brought it within 2 touchdowns. And I clicked back and I was like, I have to watch this. Of course, then they got the other touchdown on that great reception that I thought was going to be called pass interference, and then taking an offensive pass interference. When I took a second look, it really wasn't. It was a good non-call by the refs to bring it within a touchdown. And man, I was pulling for Indiana. I told you I have a guy, our former basketball coach, Mark Springer, is a big Hoosiers guy. So I was really pulling for the Hoosiers. Oh gosh, I wanted them to win that game. It was tough to see, but they couldn't get anything going. And now we still, for whatever reason, are going to have to listen to Justin Fields in the Heisman, even though he threw 3 interceptions in a game. So always disappointing. Disappointed that that Indiana couldn't pull out the victory there, because I know had they scored a touchdown, they were going for two and trying to win that game.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would have tried to put just try to win that game at the very end. For me, when I see Indiana, I mean they're a pretty complete team. They got a pretty stout defense that can keep you in the game. I know, like I said, the score got out of hand a little bit early, but then they brought it back in. Ohio State did not. They didn't let them stretch it too far out there. But it is tough to try to win a game when they're over 40 points like that. But I would say when I watch that offense, I mean, do you think it's really more playmakers between Penix and Freifogel that makes you kind of, at least makes people like me want that for Clemson? Is it the playmakers? Do you think it's the play calling? Because sometimes I'm like, man, I wish that Clemson would do some of these things that Indiana is doing. It looks good. But then again, I start to think, well, maybe it's not that they're doing anything different. Maybe it's because they have like a really stout number one in Freifogel. And Clemson, while Amari Rodgers is great, is really more of like a more agile Travis Etienne, instead of say, for example, Freifogel or Justin Ross.
I'll say this too. Freifogel is not the number one on Indiana's wide receiving core. Watt Fillier is. And he had a big game too. Watt Fillier, Justin Freifogel. I think it's a combination of both. I don't think people realize that Indiana for the past, 8 to 10 years has been on this slow and steady rise to like building and building and building. It started with Kevin Wilson. He got fired with the allegations that they had with a player mistreatment, and then in steps Tom Allen. No one realizes that this system was built in place when Kalen DeBoer was their offensive coordinator a couple years ago. He got asked to be the head coach of Fresno State. Very talented offensive mind. I think what Tom Allen is doing is similar to what Dabo did. He's surrounding himself with very disciplined, very, very smart-minded coaches that are able to evaluate and game plan, and you're starting to see it come together. Now, I don't know how much talent they're going to be able to amass in the future, but I will say if they're able to keep the majority of this team together next year, Indiana might be the team to beat or close to it, because Ohio State's going to have to go to Bloomington next year, and I'd imagine that Indiana is going to have a legit shot of winning that Big Ten East.
And, it's definitely not Penn State or Michigan out there contending for Ohio State or even Wisconsin. Talking about Wisconsin, Alan and I went with Wisconsin and thought that because of the amount of points they had scored in the only 2 games they had played, that they would do better than that, but didn't really take into account they had 3 wide receivers out and their quarterback was just going to turn the ball over a bunch. Northwestern looks pretty good. They have Peyton Ramsey transfer from Indiana, who, lost the job, kind of saw the writing on the wall, but was a really good quarterback and so decided to transfer out. Plays at Northwestern, and they ended up doing well. But still, it was one of those old school games where it was very slow, methodical, going down the field, defense versus defense. Wisconsin couldn't get anything going, and Northwestern could. So that was another one that we ended up losing. And then one that was a little bit more exciting was Oklahoma. They came out and just put their foot on the gas. No points allowed in the second half against Oklahoma State. The battle for Bedlam was really nothing more than, some arguing in the trenches, but Oklahoma had the win the entire time. And I like Oklahoma, man. They looking better every single week. But then the one that really gets to you, this is the one we're going to end segment 1 on, is Cincinnati goes to, as Houston mentioned, the jump house, right? And the bounce house, and they go play Central Florida in Orlando, have an opportunity to cover the spread, already up by 3 points. Why would you not want to score a touchdown? Alan, why?
Well, Houston obviously called in his mob connections for that one. You see him celebrating down there, and he's celebrating, and he picked the game wrong, Morgan. He picked it wrong. We picked it right. He just ended up on the right side of it, okay?
Oh.
Turn his little square off down there, please, for just a minute. Mute him for a second, because we need to talk about this.
I should get a PTI plug-in so I can just freeze him in black and white.
This was a great game. It was an awesome game to watch. It was a lot of fun. Cincinnati's coming down for potentially the late cover. Obviously, they hand it off. Running back runs to the left side, wide open, easy walk-in touchdown. And unlike a lot of teams, he did the smart thing because they had all their timeouts remaining. UCF had all their timeouts remaining, and he went down on the one because if he made them use their timeouts there, they could all but run down the clock, kick a field goal, whatever it may be. And he went down on the one. And even after that, after they made him use a couple of timeouts, they still tried to punch it in. And, they were,
Yeah,
they
that
were
just made me
2
more
inches
mad.
away from the goal line and got stopped and got pushed back. And then they finally said, you know what, let's just go ahead and end this thing now. And then they almost fumbled it away.
And
so
then
it
they
was kinda,
almost, yeah.
it was an interesting game. Cincinnati obviously could have punched it in and covered the spread had they wanted to there at the end, but they made the smart play. Kudos to the running back because it's about winning the game. Also to that running back, I hate you now.
Yeah, that's almost a you're dead to me moment. Actually, Cincinnati's not you're dead to me. Right here on this phone, Alan Adams, you're dead to me because you're the one that put it into the universe 2 minutes before it happened. He said, wait, watch, and see. Yeah. They're not going to score on purpose. They're not going to score on purpose. 2 minutes later, what do? Not score on purpose.
You can see it. I've been picking games a long time, man.
Electric.
You can see it happening a mile away.
Absolutely. Now I know what it feels like, how Auburn fans felt during the kick six.
Oh.
You have one of those moments where you're like, this should not have happened, but it did. I'm going to enjoy it. I audibly gasped. My wife didn't know what was going on. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
That should have won an SB. That play should be nominated for SB Play of the Year. Guys, got me 7-1. Thank you.
We all could have ended up 6-2 if it wasn't for that dumb decision on the 1 yard line. 1 yard cost it for us and helped Houston in that one. But again, congratulations. That's the recap of Week 12. Sans Clemson versus Florida State, as we'll talk about a little bit. We don't want to get too much into it because, as Dabo Sweeney said, it's time for Pittsburgh. And we don't care if we play Florida State ever again.